When you look at the history of horror movies, there are plenty out there that are tame, that are fine for general consumption, and then there are those movies that have been banned. Here are 13 movies that throughout the history of film have been banned, and some of them might just surprise you. So to start it off, we've got a bit of a surprising one. Throughout the history of the Friday the 13th franchise, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, was the only one that got banned, and it got banned in 4 different countries. And this was in the 80s, so there was, less tolerance for violence and all of that. But when you're looking at movies and horror movies in general, Friday the 13th doesn't scream, hey, this should get banned. And in the Friday the 13th series, the final chapter doesn't scream, hey, this should get banned. Moreover, the first film has more graphic depictions of violence. It has the arrow through the heart, through the throat, all of that. This movie, it's not the most violent of all of them. Friday the 13th, Jason Lives, a guy gets bent over backwards, stuff like that, where the violence might be more cartoonish at a certain point, but for Friday the 13th, the final chapter, this is pretty tame in, the whole series as it goes on. So it's very surprising that this movie would have gotten banned, but as it goes on, more of these movies become more and more messed up. Next, we have another one that's probably not going to surprise anybody that it got banned, but we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yes, the original from Tobe Hooper. Not surprising that this movie would get banned. It is quite violent. It is quite, for the time, excessively violent. But when you look at it in a modern lens, it's not as violent as some of the other peers on this list. But you can see why it was banned in 14 countries. That is insane to think about, that this movie right here that doesn't really show the violence, that more leaves it up to the audience's imagination when it comes to Leatherface killing people, was banned in 14 countries. That is insanity, and this movie is insanity. This is a great movie. If you haven't seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, pause this video, go watch it, and then come back to me, because it's a stone cold classic. It is great, and it's not banned in a lot of those countries anymore, but still, being banned across 14 countries, that is insane. These next couple of movies I don't own on physical media, whether that's I don't want to own them because they actually suck, or I don't own them yet, or whatever, or they're not available on physical media. The first one we have here is a movie that I was not forced to watch, but my friends rented it when I was in high school, and that is Human Centipede 2. There is Human Centipede 1, which was also banned in several countries when it was released, but Human Centipede 2 goes even further beyond in the depravity, in the violence, in just the, gross outness just for the sake of it. And this movie, it does all of that. It was banned in 6 countries at one point. And Human Centipede 2, this isn't going to be a review of the movie. I don't care for this movie at all. The protagonist, antagonist, whatever the hell you want to call it, is disgusting, is vile, and it's just gross and vile and mean-spirited in just no way that's other than just to be there to shock people. And there's room for that in horror, but this movie is just, it probably should have gotten banned in more countries because it sucks, but that's censorship, so we'll get out of that way right there. Next up is a movie that I enjoy very much, and that is Dead Alive, or Braindead, from Peter Jackson. This movie is locked on DVD or VHS, however you own it, and it was banned in 6 countries. So this one, it does gross you out. It does have a lot of violence. It set the record at the time for most amount of blood used in a movie, but it's for a reason, because it's funny as hell. It follows the trajectory of early career Peter Jackson with lots of blood, lots of comedy, but it's all for a reason, and it's funny as hell, and it's just a great movie. I wish they would put this one out on Blu-ray or 4K. We might be getting one sometime soon. It seems like Peter Jackson might be working on that. Hopefully, crossing my fingers, it is not an AI upscaled mess of a film, because the stuff that he did with the Beatles was, quite frankly, disgusting at a certain point. But let's hope it's not like that. If it is, we'll deal with that when we get to it. But Braindead / Dead Alive, depending on where you live, is amazing. But it was banned in, 6 countries. Next up is another movie that is horrifying in another way. It is Salo, or 121 Days of Sodom. This movie is one of those movies that you will watch once and you will say, I never need to watch that ever again. Thank you, no thank you. I don't own this movie on physical media. I refuse to own this movie on physical media because it is just a heinous movie. It shows the depravity, it shows the violence, it shows what fascism can do to societies, but at the end of the day, it is not a movie that I would like to own, but it was banned in multiple countries at one point. This movie makes the list of a lot of people's lists out there of most disgusting, most horrifying, most whatever films, not even just horror films, but it is a horrific film in a different sense of the word. It's just, if you haven't seen it, I would not recommend it because it is so horrifying and graphic. But if you do want to watch it, it does have a message of fascism is bad. And yes, that's true. So go watch this movie if you want to. I will not be watching this movie ever again. I will not be owning this movie on physical media, but you can check it out for yourself. Following that, we have a movie by Eli Roth. I do not own Hostel. Hostel was banned in 2 countries, so it's not leading our list by any means here, but Hostel is that mid to late 2000s, early 2010s sort of torture porn almost that Saw gets the, credit for kicking off. But Hostel, it's about basically a group of people staying at a hostel that get tortured. It's a fine movie. It's not my type of horror personally. I did like Saw X. I do enjoy the Saw series, but this Hostel 1 and 2, not for me, but I can see why it was banned for just massive, overly amounts of violence. It's a violent film, but it does do it in such a way that it's presented a little bit better than something like Human Centipede or Human Centipede 2. If you like Eli Roth's movies, you might like Hostel more than I did. I did enjoy Thanksgiving, so hopefully that sequel is good, but Hostel banned in at least 2 countries. Next up, we have The Last House on the Left, and this movie was banned in 3 countries. This list isn't in any order of banned, by the way. It's just in the order that I wrote it here, but it was banned in 3 countries, and this is revenge at its best. That is what it is all about here, and it was banned in 3 countries for excessive violence and violence against women. Yes, it is graphic. Yes, it is a lot to handle, but goddamn is it a great movie, and it is a great revenge horror flick. You see, just in live time, this chick go after these guys, and boy does she go after them. The Last House on the Left is a classic of horror, a classic of revenge film, and it tells you a message of resilience is key. You gotta be resilient. If you live to survive, you can go get those people that wronged you. It's an amazing movie. If you haven't seen it for yourself, go check out The Last House on the Left. I need to pick it up on physical media because I don't own it yet. After that, we have another movie that is a bit politically charged, a bit on the divisive side, and that is a Serbian Film, which was banned in 7 countries. I, myself, saw the sort of edited version. I have not seen the unedited version of this film, nor do I want to see the unedited version of this film. I don't want to own it on physical media. I don't recommend watching it. It is about, at a certain realm of thinking, the treatment of the Serbian people by its government over the years, but it does so in such a way that is just about as mean-spirited and gross as possible. It's about a former porn actor that gets involved in one more film that ends up being the snuff film of all snuff films. It's just violent, it is just gross, it is sexually charged, and quite frankly, I can't recommend it to anybody to watch it. If you want to watch it, go watch it for yourself, but I'm not recommending you do. It is one of the most messed up movies I've seen, and that was the edited version. That was not the unedited, uncut, whatever the hell you want to call version. You can go find that one for yourself. I did not want to watch this movie, and I don't recommend that you do either, but it was banned in at least 7 countries. Next up, we have one that makes sense why it was banned in 3 different countries, and that is The Exorcist from William Friedkin. The Exorcist is one of the greatest horror movies of all time. This is an excellent 4K physical media release if you're into that kind of thing. Comes with a nice slipcover. It's for the 100 years of Warner Brothers. Excellent release that does have the extended director's cut in the original theatrical version, in addition to some other special features that go into the making of this movie. And you can see why, if you've seen this movie, why it was banned. It is religiously charged. It is sacrilegious at certain points. It dives into what is your religion, what do you believe, how do you get through your life in what you believe, all of that. And it's masterfully directed by William Friedkin, masterfully acted, masterful effects, everything. There's a reason why this is one of the best horror movies of all time. It's up there with Halloween, with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, everything. The Exorcist is a near perfect, if not perfect, flawless horror movie. And I do recommend you watch this one over anything else on this list. But The Exorcist is fantastic, but it is easy to see why it was banned in multiple countries. After that, we have another film that I do not own on physical media because of reasons, but that is Cannibal Holocaust, and it was banned in 8+ countries. This movie, when it released, it was thought to have been actual footage of people dying, actual footage of natives murdering and killing travelers. It came out later on that that was all fake, but they did end up killing a cow in the film. There's a scene where they do kill a cow. That, however, was real. That, however, was one of the reasons why this movie was banned in multiple countries, plus the idea that it was actually real and not just a movie. If you think about it like that and you go into this movie watching it like, oh crap, this could be something that's real that's happening, it is gross. It is disgusting. It is all of the above. But it does fit in with the rest of these movies on this list for one reason or another, that it just show off either, you know, the treatment of native people by, you know, invaders, travelers, whatever. And it goes into it. The filmmakers were almost jailed because people thought that they were murdered on screen. Such is the fact of movie making, such is the fact of horror movies. But Cannibal Holocaust, I don't really want to watch this movie ever again. It is gross. It is disgusting. It's really not for me. I'm not a big found footage type of guy anyway. So it is a classic if you're into that kind of thing, but not for me. But watch it for yourself if you really want to see what something that was banned in multiple 8+ countries looks like. We have our final 3, and one of these might surprise you, but this one will not. That is Maniac. It was banned in 3 different countries. I need to get my hands on a nice physical media copy of Maniac. If you know of one, let me know in the comments what you think of the best one. But Maniac is violent. It doesn't glorify violence, but there are several scenes that are just horrific in this film. People getting scalped. The main character, the killer, is masterfully portrayed. So terrifying, just horrifying in so many ways. This is a great movie. It's a great 70s horror film. And if you love those sort of killer, sort of going into the psyche of a killer type horror movies, you will love Maniac, and Maniac is just one of the best out there. Following Maniac, we have a film that might have gotten a lot of us here into horror, and we have Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead. It was banned in 3 countries, and it's easy to see why. This movie, at the time, was incredibly violent, incredibly horrifying. What was going on, if you ever watch this movie and you watch it with a modern lens, besides the fact that you're watching it as like a film student or whatever, yeah, it's easy to see why some of the effects are dated, all of that. But if you watch this movie in the lens of when it came out, it is a masterwork of low-budget horror filmmaking. Sam Raimi and crew here did a magnificent job on this film. I watch this movie every year, at least once a year, because it is that damn good. The Evil Dead is so fantastic. As a series, The Evil Dead is great. There are no weak entries in this series, and this one is just one of the best ones, and it's incredibly violent, but it's violence for the sake of making a great movie, so check out The Evil Dead if you haven't seen it. I said I had a surprise. Do you want a surprise for a movie that was banned in 5+ countries? Get ready for it, folks. Frankenstein was banned in 5+ countries. Universal Studios Frankenstein, or Universal Pictures, whatever you want to call it, was banned in 5+ countries, and that was in the 30s. This movie was horrifying at the time. It is a classic of horror filmmaking to this day. If you don't give the Universal monsters their due, you should. Just because they're in black and white, just because they're old, whatever. They're not that long to get into, but Frankenstein, Dracula, all of them. Those are the 2 best of the bunch, and without these 2 movies, without Frankenstein, we wouldn't have nearly any of the horror movies that we do these days. The original story is horrifying. The original story was banned in multiple countries at certain points. Frankenstein the movie now. I didn't know that going into this list, that it was banned in 5+ countries. That is insane, but Frankenstein is a horror classic. What are some of the your favorite movies that have been banned that I didn't get to on this list? Are there any ones that were surprising? Let me know in the comments, and if you like this list and you want to know more about horror movies, maybe some horror movies that you should be talking about that people aren't, check out this list right here, and you'll get tons of them.